And welcome to Get Involved Referee with me, Lindsay Herron, and Des Roache, as we look back on, well, the first set of fixtures for 2023 in the SPFL Premiership. Plenty to talk about, Des. Obviously, the main talking point for us has got to be the Rangers-Celtic match at Ibrox. But always a huge occasion, and no doubt, we've got some good talking points in terms of the penalty incidents. But again, it was one of these matches, Des, that was pretty tame in terms of the challenges and the sort of, animosity that we've seen in the past. It was quite tame in that regard, do you think?
Certainly wasn't the blood and thunder of old that we were used to, and the fact that it took to 82 minutes, I think it may have been 80 minutes for John Beaton to produce the first caution for the match. I mean, can you remember back to the Souness, Butcher, Gough, McAvenny, those kind of days, Graham Roberts, that would be unheard of. Yeah, I thought it was a really good game of football, a game of two halves to a certain extent. I think that John Beaton will be extremely pleased, and the refereeing team as a whole, to come out of that game relatively unscathed. A couple of incidents I'm sure we'll discuss. Yeah, it's not the blood and snotters that we're used to.
As usual, VAR is kind of dominating the landscape, if you like, and on the back of that game and the Edinburgh derby as well, which we'll come to subsequently. Equally, Motherwell Livingston was fairly contentious. So that, I guess from that point of view, it's made it slightly easier for John, hasn't it? Because he's now being told from the VAR Central, just outside Glasgow, that what the call should be. And so I guess the heat's not on him as much as it would have been previously.
I think the heat now is more on the VAR official rather than the referee in the ground, because the referee in the ground can make a decision, and whether he gets it marginally correct or marginally wrong, he knows or certainly hopes that the person who's watching it in the studio can give him that exact information on how it should be, and obviously that was in play yesterday. But I do think that the VAR officials up here still have a bit of work to do.
The thing, I mean, the main one, well, let's go through it chronologically then, okay? So the first big call, if you like, is the penalty decision for Rangers against Celtic, and Afashin Sakala has done well to get into the box. He's forced Carl Starfelt into a challenge. For you, penalty kick?
Yeah, there's enough there to support that, absolutely. I think Starfelt made the ill decision to go for that challenge in the first place. Sakala was going to the goal line. He's not really in a position that he's going to be shooting at goal. It's going to be coming back across. Starfelt's been rash. He's dived in. I know some people are saying that the foot of Sakala landed on top of Starfelt, but Starfelt's then continued the challenge, and there's enough to bring him down. So yeah, I've got no problems with that. I think that's the correct call when it was a penalty to Rangers.
And that was quite a quick sort of affirmation, if you like. John Beaton pointed to spot fairly quickly, and then there wasn't much time elapsing before the VAR confirmed.
Yeah, he gave the call. I'm sure there was a discussion, as there would be for any penalty area decisions, and it was also backed up. I think also none of the players overly complained about it.
Not too much.
I think they all pretty much accepted it. Tavernier obviously struck it superbly to finish it, but no, good start, good first call, penalty to Rangers. And
ironically or coincidentally, Carl Starfelt's involved in the other incident at the other end, which was the biggest sort of contentious moment of the day. And none of the officials saw this, Des. Carl Starfelt's hit the ball. Goldson's thrown his arms up to what looks like to protect his face, it would appear. Play rages on. It was a throw-in on the far side, and all of a sudden the game stops. And I think quite a lot of the stadium didn't know what was going on at that point. Certainly not too many Celtic players complaining for a penalty at the time.
No, there wasn't, and I think that's where, if this decision is coming under review, there has to be a quicker alert, and that's an issue for the SPFL. And again, we'll go back to rolling out a VAR and getting the wee things right and getting the decisions passed through and getting that information out. It should have been done at the end of the season, and this is the time to use it. However, regarding the decision, I've got to admit, my first viewing, when we seen the replay, I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was. When you look at the laws of the game, his arms are within the circumference of his body. It's going to hit his head. Is there actually a touch? It's not obviously clear. So if it's not obviously clear, then you can't give a penalty. As much as we can look at it contentiously and say, but no, it wasn't. I wouldn't have been jumping in to give that one, as much as Steve maybe would like to do.
Well, this is the anomaly. I mean, you look at other penalty decisions that have been given this season. I think the Bernabeu one comes to mind, and he's turned his back and it hits him on the arm behind, and a penalty kick's given there because his arm's in an unnatural position. This
is the whole I don't know. I mean, you've seen, as we say, the Bernabeu one. The one that for me was the one in the Hearts Kilmarnock game the other week there, when Shanklin's went up for a header with the Kilmarnock defender. The defender's arm is up to help give him elevation. It's clipped off his fingernail. He's completely unaware of it. and they're giving penalties for that. So pre the World Cup, it seemed to be that if the ball hit you anywhere in the arm or the hand in the penalty, it's a penalty. And now straight after the World Cup, we're now looking at the laws of the game a wee bit closer. I don't know if there's been an instruction there. Prior to it, it seemed to be it's not about you hitting the ball, it's about the ball hitting you. And if the ball hit you, there's a penalty against you. I think we need some clarity, and we need some clear instruction and some clear information of what now regulates and doesn't regulate the awarding of a kick.
Is this another glaring example of why the authorities could have come out in the wake of that match at Ibrox and said, let's explain the situation to you here. This is why the VAR, Willie Collum, gave this decision and instructed John Beaton not to award the penalty?
We've said it long enough in here. We always need clarification coming from the governing body, but that won't happen. Because what they're meant to do is defend the referees and look after the referees, which is entirely correct, but they've also got to provide information and support for the public, for the players as well, and the clubs, because they're the ones that are being affected by it. They need clear and defined instructions. Will it happen? Next question.
I was working at the game, and there was a total lack of information coming across to the supporters and everybody else on the ground that a VAR review was taking place. It seemed to take a long time to get up on the big screens. I don't know if that's Rangers' fault or whether it's an SPFL thing. And there was no announcement over the tannoy. What about making it like the NFL and getting John Beaton to say VAR call for potential penalty?
It should be. If John's the one who's making the decision and he's thinking, I'm not sure, then as you say, like the American football, he's going to ask for he should be asking for a review. It is just so elongated now. It's the VAR officials taking 3-4 attempts to look at it. He's then calling the match referee across, who's then going to go for another 3-4 minutes at it. That's just too long. We don't play basketball. We're not in a stop-start game. It should be, right, have a look, 2 quick looks. Is it yes, no, fine, get on with it, and just be a lot more smoother and transitional.
Well, and like we said, none of the officials saw this potential handball. So I guess the process is that Willie Collum shouts down the earpiece to John Beaton, look, there might be a penalty here, John, give me a sec, I'm just going to have a quick look again, it could be a handball, that sort of thing. But of course they didn't show it in the big screens at Ibrox, did they? Because they don't want the fans to see it. That's
certainly the process that should have happened, and you'd have thought that now we're so many months into it that every decision, and we know if it's within the penalty area and it's in the attacking player pathway, if there's something happening there, the VAR official must be getting in touch with the referee to say, look, I'm having a look at it, yep, you're correct, carry on, or no, I think it's a penalty, come across, have a look. It's got to be that way, but it's just taken so bloody long.
People said that VAR wouldn't referee games, but in this instance they have.
They have, yeah.
Yeah, because they've stepped in to say this could be a penalty, and they've told John that it's not. Otherwise the game would have raged on anyway. Do you know what I mean? So this was a blatant incident of VAR running the match. Absolutely, and that's not what it's there for. It's there to assist, video assistant referee. It's not video referee. And on this occasion, that's what's happened. The referee hasn't made the call. It's been the video assistant who's made the call. The other thing from the Rangers Celtic match was our colleague Steve Conroy brought up was the potential head injury to James Tavernier during the game. Needed quite a bit of treatment. He had a clash of heads with Dyson Maeda on the touchline, and he ended up with a bloody nose and what have you. And Steve's a great advocate for, you've got to get these guys off the pitch, for the potential head injury problem and concussion. It's not something that happens all that often, is it? It's not, and it certainly should, because you're dealing with young people, young fit athletes' lives. And if there is an incident of concussion, then that player should be removed for their own safety. That's the first and foremost. The player's got to be saved for themselves. Regarding the one yesterday, I don't think Tavernier looked as if he was concussed. I think it was just obviously an unfortunate accidental clash of heads and his nose was bleeding. But there's still enough severity there to say, right, look, take a wee bit of time. But I agree entirely with Steve. Going forward, if any player receives concussion, they've got to some time out. That shouldn't even be a question. Well, there are these new guidelines, of course, about heading, in the build-up to games and after games, and trying to limit that because, there is evidence to suggest that it may cause, problems down the line, dementia or Alzheimer's or that type of thing. So surely the current players should be protected as well. Absolutely, they've got to be. Was it George Cohen, the England player who just died recently? Yeah. Had the onset of dementia, and his family have been calling for it for a long time. We're now seeing young children aren't allowed to head the ball at training. We're now seeing the limited use that adults can do on it. Football's a contact sport. You're always going to have that
unfortunate risk that something may happen. But to negate it and to give yourself the best opportunity, yeah, I'm quite happy that they're bringing this involved for training.
And sticking with VAR, it was massive in the Edinburgh derby as well, Des. I mean, we talked about using it slickly and as quickly as we possibly can, but my goodness, Kevin Clancy stuck there for 6 minutes before he was able to come up with what turned out to be, we think, the right decision, but there were so many aspects to that passage of play. What was your take on it all?
There was certainly a lot to consider. There was a potential pull by the Hearts player on the Hibernian player as the cross came in. Sibic is then in an offside position, which he's entitled to be as long as he's not interfering with play. But he's only 2 yards from, is it Yuan, the defender, who handles the ball.
Oh, Rocky Bashiri.
Bashiri, who then arms the ball deliberately. But Sibic has came round the front of him, so Bashiri's only doing it because he knows that there's a player there. So they would negate the handball because of the offside. But it was deemed by them that the offside player was entitled to be there and then came round. But he's only been in that position because he was in the offside in the first place. So he's gained the advantage of being there. For me, I think it was an offside. I'd be really thinking it's very difficult for Hibs to take on that one, and they are fighting for every point they can get at the moment. Yes, it's a handball. I can completely understand that, but I think that is mitigated by the Hearts player being offside in the first place and then gaining the advantage by being there.
But the point is, why was a penalty awarded? Because Sibic has put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
Therefore, why would drag it back to the previous?
There should be no need. If they're going that it's the handball and they're going to stop and give a penalty, but he already scored. So give the goal.
The game hadn't stopped.
No, so give the goal. I really don't know what the discussion was on that one.
And that was an example of where Kevin Clancy was invited to go to the screen to watch it. So is he watching? We don't know what he's watching. Is he watching only the handball, or is he watching the potential offside prior to the handball? Well,
the fact that he's gave the penalty kick, to me, I would think that then he's only concentrating on the handball because the goal's already been scored. The only decision you're then given is, do you give a yellow card or a red card for the player for trying to deny an obvious goal scoring opportunity, which he obviously didn't because a goal was scored. So a yellow card's the correct outcome. But where the penalty kick comes from, I don't know.
So again, is that not another glaring example of come on guys, come out and tell us what happened. Tell us what happened at Ibrox and tell us what happened at Tynecastle.
As we always said, information, education, coaching. That's what we all need. We all need that information. The fact that Kevin didn't give it in the first place and the goal was awarded, then there is no need to go back.
Exactly. So they could have avoided the whole 6 minute scenario by just allowing the goal to stand.
Absolutely. And Bashiri gets his yellow card, which was correct. The game carries on, and there just didn't see any need for it at all.
And it was a bit of a controversial one in the Livingston St Mirren game as well, a handball in that one, which again, you look at the differences of opinion and how these penalties are awarded.
Yeah, well, obviously it was Livingston Motherwell.
Motherwell, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Ricky Lammy's went for a challenge, which was fine. The ball's come up, and again, to me, the ball hit him. He's not deliberately hit the ball. He's almost on the half turn, and a penalty's awarded. Again, I don't think it was a penalty, but under current circumstances, the ball hits you. That's what you expect. And again, I don't think there was overly much complaint from the Motherwell players. They accepted it.
So I think there are three big key areas that the SFA or the SPFL could help clarify, couldn't they? Just explain why these decisions were reached, and also, has there been an edict from FIFA, oblique UEFA, in terms of penalties? Because it seems like there seems to be a change in the way the whole thing's constructed now, given on the back of the World Cup, because it seemed to change during the World Cup, didn't it?
Absolutely, it certainly did seem to change. The referees were almost getting a bit more autonomy on how they can make their own call. But whether something officials come out, I've got no idea. But we need clarity. We need to be told what does and what doesn't constitute a penalty kick. In my opinion, it should be if you deliberately hit the ball, if you deliberately make yourself bigger, if you deliberately have an effect on that instance, then yes, penalty kick. If it hits you, if it's unavoidable, if you're sliding in for a challenge, if you're landing from a jump, if you're elevating yourself in to win a header and the ball hits you, then that's entirely different. So no, I think we're still in for an interesting few months.
Are you getting any anecdotal feedback from the current refs that how they feel about it? Are they settled with it? Are they happy with it?
From the information that we've been getting, I think the guys are a wee bit frustrated like us. They see situations where they wouldn't want to give a penalty, but they're expected to give a penalty. And I think players are the exact same as well, where no way would you anticipate an award being given for a particular instance, but at this minute in time you're going to claim for it. So I think the guys are a wee bit unsure of it and a bit have their own thoughts. However, it won't change because it's coming from FIFA. FIFA then pass it down to UEFA, and UEFA then pass it on to the Scottish FA, who will have an expectation of what the referees are expected to do.
No, exactly. And just finally, looking at the performances of your fellow whistlers or your ex-fellow whistler, you're an ex-fellow whistler, over the weekend, who would you pick out as your top man?
I think you can only go to John Beaton. I think he's come out of that Old Firm game, as I say, relatively unscathed. It was not blood and thunder that we've seen it in the past, but nobody's complaining about him. Nobody's looking for him. I thought he'd had a really, really good game, so I would give it to John for this week.
Excellent. Well, thanks for listening and Get Involved Referee. We'll catch you next time.